Hey guys, welcome to the channel. In today's video we check out the Dead Space remake. So this is my first time ever playing the Dead Space games. I never got to play this game when I was younger. And to be like super honest, I wasn't really into like the horror genre until much later, until I got much older. Which is also kind of weird because we technically had the Dead Space games because my brothers remember playing it. I just never played it apparently. And after playing the Callisto Protocol, which was actually made by the people that made the original Dead Space, it just got me even more excited for this remake. Now, I'm probably one of the few people that actually enjoyed the Callisto Protocol, and maybe that's because I hadn't ever experienced Dead Space yet. Regardless of that, it's been on my most anticipated list, and oh boy did this game deliver. This is a remake, so not a whole lot has changed from what I understand story-wise. It's still the same Isaac Clarke story from the original, so I'm not going to go too in-depth about the story and stuff like that. I personally just want to go over the things that I really enjoyed about the game and maybe a few things that I didn't quite, and give my final score at the end of the video. Starting with this story here. You play as Isaac Clarke, an engineer sent out to answer the distress call of the USG Ishimura. Hopefully I said that right. It's like this giant planet cracking ship. Basically they break the planet open and extract the core, if I'm understanding that right. And upon landing on the Ishimura, you discover that literally everyone is either one, dead, or two, turned into a friggin' zombie with like swords, blades for hands. And without giving too much of the story details away, pretty much you're just trying to figure out why everyone's turning into zombies and how to get off this dang ship. Because literally everything and everyone wants to kill you. Minus like two people who end up dying anyway. Oops, spoiler. Like I said, I don't want to talk too much about it because just like if you're just like me and you're discovering Dead Space for the first time, I was actually blown away about some of the twists and turns and overall had a really good time with the story. So there are spoilers out there, but they're not going to be from me. Talking about the gameplay here, a lot of the gameplay is super similar to a lot of other survival horror games where you're very limited on resources, you're very limited on ammo, and you have to kind of keep an eye and balance the two to make sure you just don't ever run out. One thing that I feel like sets Dead Space apart from some of the other survival horror games is their weapons are freaking awesome. There's about, I believe, 8 or 9 weapons. I'd have to count them out here real quick. But they're all super unique and super freaking cool. I also think that having Isaac like make his weapons really plays into him being like a whole engineer thing. And it's just really cool. Like when he finds like the plasma cutter and he just like jerry rigs it to a weapon that can cut off limbs of these necromorphs. I don't know, I just thought that was really creative and really cool. Some of my favorite weapons being the first weapon that you get, which was the plasma cutter. It was kind of like your old reliable, always got the job done, and it was just a fun weapon. I also really like the pulse rifle, just because it's basically your automatic weapon in the game. And I also really liked the line gun, which I'm pretty sure is the most powerful weapon in the game. When I was looking at the stats, like it just did crazy amount of damage, and it would one-shot all the limbs off of everything. Like usually with the plasma cutter, you had to shoot them, 2 or 3 times to knock off this limb. The plasma cutter would just instantly like saw off their legs and saw off their limbs or saw them in half. It was a lot of fun. And then you also have like some really unique weapons. Like you have this weapon called the Ripper that's literally like not a chainsaw. It's like a bandsaw, and it literally just shoots saw blades out, and you can like shoot them halfway, and it like stops them with your magnetic thing, and it just will spin blades. Another one is the Force Gun, which every time I used it, it literally just blew the skin off of the enemies, and it was just gross and freaking cool at the same time. Like they're just some weird weapons, but I loved them. Along with some of the weapons you have a few other tools at your disposal. One of them being the, I believe it's called Status, where you can shoot like a blue orb and it will freeze anything that's in front of you, allowing you to just unleash a ton of rounds in them, or in the case of like the brute boss, basically to freeze him so you can run around him and shoot his weak spot on his back. Along with the Status, you also have the magnetic grip, which allows you to pick up objects and throw them at enemies. Honestly, I found that the magnetic grip I didn't use too much. The only times I really used them was when I could visibly see like explosives, or if there was broken poles, you can basically throw them like spears with a magnetic grip. One thing I do wish after playing this game after Callisto Protocol is that I wish you could pick up some of the wish you could pick up some of the enemies and toss them around. There's not really anything to throw enemies in, but it'd be kind of cool to pick them up and just toss them over the edge or throw them into something. Something that I feel like Callisto Protocol did pretty well. All these weapons are upgradable with nodes. I totally have maxed out the plasma cutter and the pulse rifle and a few other weapons. I didn't really do too much into everything else, but all these weapons are upgradable. Even your suit is upgradable. And then you can find different upgrades to your attachments to your weapons, allowing them to do different specials. Like for the plasma cutter, for instance, once you find a few upgrades, it'll start to light your enemies on fire. But overall, like I said, I thought the weapons were great. I thought the gameplay was a lot of fun, and the enemies were cool to fight, trying to shoot off their limbs to be able to beat them, because if you just unload a whole clip right into their chest, they don't go down, or it takes a lot of rounds to get them down. So that was a lot of fun. Gameplay was fun. Along with the enemies, the game does have a handful of bosses, pretty much all of which I really enjoyed. Some of, like the brutes, do show up quite a few times later, and even like the hunter, once you destroy the hunter, he does come back later in the game. So I do love all the bosses. I thought they were a lot of fun. None of them were particularly hard. They basically all had like a gimmick per se, like shooting the yellow orange orbs that are on them, or sacks up, whatever they are. Same with like the brute, you had to freeze him to get around him and shoot his back, and the hunter, you had to get him in the cryo sleep thing, and then later you had to freeze him in front of like the jet turbine thing to burn him. So they all had like, I guess, gimmicks. None of them were particularly hard, but once you figured out how to beat them, they're cake. Up next, I do want to talk about the levels. I do feel like Dead Space had really great level design. It was really cool to see how the whole ship kind of interconnected, and it felt like you're actually running around on an actual ship, opposed to like just going from corridor to corridor, which I felt Callisto was kind of like, where you just went from hallway to hallway. This one actually felt like I was going through a ship. You would unlock shortcuts to get back to a certain hub area. Like if you're in the maintenance section, there's like 5 different doors that all kind of interconnect into this one area. Same with the hospital type area, the medic area. So it was kind of cool to see all these different places kind of interconnect, and like I said, it actually felt like I was just, exploring a ship. Secondly, everything just looks fantastic. All the walls, the writing, just the atmosphere that they portray here is all top notch. Which kind of segue into the next thing I wanted to talk about, was the sound design. Sound design was also super good. You can hear like the zombies like crawling around in like the air ducts, or when they're about to break out of like fans. Also, there was like just this dark, eerie music most of the time, especially like during boss fights or really intense moments. Another thing that was kind of like an added touch is like, you can, if you're quiet, you can hear like the slight heartbeat. And I want to say that's supposed to be your character Isaac, where his just heart is beating fast, and it just makes me nervous. Like when I hear his heart beating fast, I'm like, crap, is there's something coming? Why is he nervous? Like I said, the music was great and was scary and suspenseful, and made every encounter even that more intense. One of the last things I do want to touch on before we end the video here is the performance. Now, I played on the PlayStation 5, and for me personally, I really didn't run into really any issues other than one. And if there was more than that, I honestly didn't notice. I didn't notice any frame drops. I didn't notice any like glitches. I didn't notice anything. And if there were, it didn't affect the gameplay at all. The only issue that I did run into is whenever I would first turn on the game, it was usually when I first booted up the PlayStation, turned on the game, for some reason my camera would get stuck. I could move my character around, I could turn him around, I could shoot, do everything, but my camera was like stuck. I'm sure I'm throwing it somewhere here on screen for you guys to see, but it only happened when I first turned on the game, and even then it wasn't every single time I turned on the game. It was every now and then this issue would happen, and basically the only thing that worked to fix it was just to hop back to the main menu and start over again, which wasn't a huge deal. One other glitch that I ran into was a portion during one of the levels where you're supposed to ignite the engines, and after you put the power cell in, a bunch of enemies are supposed to come out. And for me, like, the music was going crazy, but none of the enemies showed up, and I was like running around for literally like 20 minutes trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do. And after looking it up, I'm like, oh, the enemies didn't show up. So I restarted the game, did that level really quick again, and it worked. But those are the only two things, and I felt like those were pretty minor in comparison to like some other things. But like I said, the game on the PlayStation 5 I thought ran great for like 99% of the time and mainly had no issues. And like I said, those ones were really small comparatively. Jumping to my final thoughts on Dead Space Remake. I had an absolute incredible time. Like it's been a while since I play a game and I immediately jump into New Game Plus, and this game did it. Like the second I beat it, I'm like, I gotta play again. I thought the story was super solid. It had a few twists and turns that I personally didn't see coming, and the gameplay was a lot of fun. Out of all the horror games, I definitely feel like Dead Space jumped all the way to like one of my top favorite survival horror games. I had way more fun than I thought I was going to with this. And not only, I mean, for me personally, not only did it jump to one of my top favorite horror games, but I think it's easily in like one of my like top 10 favorite games ever. Like I had so much fun. I was absolutely blown away with how incredible this game was. And for me personally, that is why I'm going to give Dead Space Remake a 10 out of 10. I haven't given really any 10 out of 10s. I think I've given like maybe 5 or 6 total ever that I thought were honestly 10 out of 10s. And this one was so good. I really can't think of any negative things really than like that one bug that I'm sure will get patched out here soon anyway. But like I really can't think of any negative things that I can say about the game. I just only have positives. Music was great. Gameplay was great. Visually, everything just looked so good. The atmosphere was incredible. And if you guys are like me and have not experienced Dead Space yet, you owe it to yourself to go get this game and to play it. It is an absolute amazing experience. You guys will not be disappointed. And that's going to be it for the video, guys. If you made it this far, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know down in the comments below what you guys thought of Dead Space. Let me know what your favorite part of Dead Space was. I'm just so excited. I hope that they make a remake Dead Space 2, because now I want to hold off to see what that one has. And that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Like I said, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next video.